Welcome, everyone, to the Santa Lucia Dinner. I appreciate all of your attendance tonight. We're going to request that Father Don Wolf will come up and bless the food, and then after the Abel table is served, then everyone else can go through the serving line. Father Wolf.
Let us pray. On this, the feast day of the conversion of St. Paul, who on his road to Damascus saw a blinding light, and from the light heard the voice of Jesus say to him, "Call him by name, Saul, Saul." Father in heaven, we come before you asking your blessing on this our gathering. Open our eyes that we might see your light always on our road, especially as it shines amongst us and in one another, so that we might hear your voice call our name, and in hearing, begin to respond to the invitation to make your Son's life present in our world. As we gather, we ask your blessing on this food. We ask you to make us faithful. We ask you to keep us in your service. And we ask your continued blessing on all of our endeavors to bring the presence of Christ to the world still hungry and still laboring in darkness. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
If the Abel table would do the honors of starting, we'd appreciate it. And after that, the others would be eligible to do that. We'll let the ones on the far end or the close end, it doesn't make any difference, but we'll wait until they're ready. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Kip Curtis, what a great player. Thank you so much for the wonderful things. You got a sampling of great songs and movie themes. We were discussing some of the movies that made a difference in our life, and some of us were talking about things like Marty, the movie with Ernest Borgnine, and of course the movie with the Dr. Zhivago. Great movies, and thank you so much. Great job. Thank you to everyone here attending. Appreciate it. I'd like to introduce a couple of special guests we have. We have Senator Paul Racino and his wife, Cathey. They've joined us tonight. Thank you very much. We also have Senator Paul Scott and his wife, Susan. Thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate that. It's a wonderful evening to celebrate the Living Catholic productions of A Christmas Carol. I was a part of it. We have a couple of the actors, the radio stars, that did this. It was a lot of fun to accomplish, and thanks to Bill Cathey for putting that all together. It was a wonderful, special celebration for the holidays, and it meant a lot. We have some information to come later from Father Wolf, and I'd like to introduce him now to start the festivities to honor our special guests. Father Wolf is really one of my favorite religious leaders. He's a terrific guy because he's so real, and he speaks so well and represents his faith so well. And words spoken and inspired by God can change the world. And Father Wolf helps change people, and for that we are very grateful. Father Wolf is a friendly face and a great communicator for one of the greatest faiths that celebrates the life of Jesus Christ. And if you'll welcome with me, Father Don Wolf.
Again, good of you to be here. It's terrific to be in this space. I think that the theme that we have up here on the wall toward the top, which is one of the favorite statements of the patron saint here at McGinnis, Blessed George Frassati, is the striving toward the top, which is what Living Catholic is focused on and what is interested to do. It was actually Bill Cathey who invited me to be a part of an idea that he had to be able to get on the radio and to put our programs together. We've been at it now for almost 6 years. I did have a radio program before that, but as I've told people before, it was in a different format on a different station in a different language. So this has been a lot more fun to do, and I've enjoyed my association with Living Catholic and the opportunity to do this in cooperation with Bill. It's a great opportunity that we have a chance here in the Santa Lucia Society to, at the Santa Lucia Dinner, to honor Ed Abel and to take a moment to reflect on the opportunity that we have to bring light to other people. Santa Lucia was a saint from the 3rd century who was a martyr during the Diocletian persecution. It was an enormous time of stress and difficulty for those who witnessed to the faith in a way that it's hard for us to appreciate in a world where the state presumed that they owned the bodies of their citizens. So to refuse to do what the state expected, like getting married, serving in the military, or simply being a good daughter was enough to bring the wrath of the state down on you. And that's what St. Lucy, Santa Lucia, suffered during that time of persecution. The opportunity for us to remember that there's never a time when the world doesn't need more light. And our opportunity to recognize those who serve, those who are visually impaired, who help through the various programs and the various technologies, as well as witness to bring light to those who have difficulty seeing, is, of course, a great inspiration. At Living Catholic, what we want to do is to make the power of faith, the light of Christ, available and present, shining through the life of faith in the presence of other people, so that through witness, through word, and through example, we have the opportunity to see, and in seeing to know, and in knowing to serve. That's what Living Catholic is about, and why I'm so grateful that all of you are here to be able to honor Ed Abel at our Santa Lucia dinner, as well as to celebrate this opportunity to continue to bring light to the darkness of the world. Now, we have a brief video introduction of Ed, so we'd like to begin that now. We're sitting here in your office, and there is a very large stuffed bear in the corner over here. Can you tell me about that?
Well, I can. My wife, who is also a very good shot with a rifle, my wife and I went to the western part of Canada, and we were on the island just off the west coast of Canada, and we had a guide and we went bear hunting.
Okay.
And then that bear came back out, and I heard that guide say, "Take him." We were within about 50 yards of him, and he said, "Take him." And about that time, the bear must have caught my scent, because he turned just real quick like that, and he gave me a side shot, and I fired that rifle, and I heard that bear put out the awfulest yell that you'd ever heard, and he fell over. I had the bear stuffed, and I was going to take it home, and my wife said, "You can do anything you want to with that bear at the office." Uh-huh. And so I was in Leadership Square in Oklahoma City at that time, officed there for 20 years. And my staff and I were going to take that bear up to my office on the 7th floor. And we put it in the elevator, and there was a lady who would not get on the elevator with us at that bear.
Do you have children?
I do. I have 3 daughters and 1 son. My 2 older daughters are not attorneys. My son is an attorney and offices with me, and my youngest daughter is an attorney and is officing with me.
Okay.
And I have to tell you a funny story about that. I was working on a case with, my daughter's name is Dacia. I was working on a case with her, and she was saying, "Dad, do this, don't do this, do this." And I turned to her and I said, "Dacia, how in the world did I get along for 50 years before you came to practice with me?" And she said, "I don't know. Just do what I say."
That's right. It's a mystery to me.
You know, I have a very wonderful wife that I've been married to now approximately 40 years, soon to be 40 years. And she's been a tremendous help to me. and we've had such a wonderful relationship. I think a lot closer than if I was independent and I had great eyesight, can just go off and do things by myself. You know, I've had to depend on her for a lot of things, and so that's been one of the wonderful things that has come about. And she has, I'm going to use the word, she's put up with me, because sometimes being blind is not easy. It's not easy for me, and it's not easy for her.
Yeah.
And as a couple, we have made through that, and I'm so appreciative of that, and I thank the Lord for her.
Could you tell me a little bit about your decision to go to law school?
I was in high school, junior high school and high school debate, in quite a bit of the debate program. I loved to play sports, but I wasn't good enough to be really great in baseball.
Yeah.
And so I got involved in debate, and I loved debate, and we would travel from school to school and tournament to tournament and doing debate. And so, you know, when I decided to go to college, well, I was sent to college by my parents to be a teacher, and I thought, you know, I might be a speech teacher, I might teach debate. Now, my dad thought, when I told him I wanted to go to law school, that lawyers were pretty smart, pretty crafty, and about 90% dishonest, and he wasn't very happy with that. But my dad and I were very close, and so he remained quiet when I went on to undergraduate school, went to law school. And I went to law school 3 years at OU, did well in law school. And of course, he was real proud of that fact. And after I became a lawyer, he found some ways to have me work for him a little bit on some legal things, and he was happy about that.
I understand that in the course of your study, even in law school, you were in the process of losing your sight.
That's correct, yes.
And so this is a battle that you have been waging for quite a few years, as far as the losing your sight and coming to become accommodated to that reality in your life.
Well, that's true. Back in the early 1970s, I used to go skiing in the mountains, and I was coming home from skiing. I was driving my car, and I'm talking about Colorado, and I thought these gnats were flying in front of me, and I was doing like this, trying to swat at them. Well, it wasn't gnats. My eye was hemorrhaging, and I was getting these blood spots in front of my eyes that would pass in front of my vision. So I went to see an eye doctor, and the eye doctor looked at me and he said, "You'll be blind in a year." I said, "What?" He said, "You'll be blind in a year." So I prayed about that, and he referred me out to Dean McGee Eye Institute. And of course, one of my favorite sports coaches, Bud Wilkinson, who had been the football coach at OU, his son became my eye doctor. He was a very fine eye doctor, and he saved my eyesight for a long period of time. I ended up losing my eyesight in my left eye in 1979 after some surgery to attempt to save it. I did have some surgery on my right eye, which gave me prolonged vision in that eye, but I continued to lose the vision. And so then I've been totally blind probably for the last 18, 20 years, something like that.
Is what you've learned about yourself in the process of this, is it something that touches your soul, or is it simply the kind of, the bridge that you have to cross in order to be accommodated to the blindness?
Well, let me tell you a story, and I hope this answers your question. When I was told that I was going to be blind, I got out on my knees and prayed about it. And I said, "What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I need your help." And the message that came to me was what I understand God said to the Apostle Paul right before the Apostle Paul, we believe, was beheaded. and that was, "My grace is sufficient for you." And I thought, I've got to depend on the Lord for this, and I've got to continue if I want to do something, or otherwise I'll go sit in a corner.
Sure.
And I'll be there by myself after a while, because people get tired of coming over and talking to you when you're just sitting there moaning and groaning. And so I thought, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and I'm going to do whatever I can do. And
Okay.
so that was how I got my energy, if you could put it that way, my energy to
Sure.
go ahead and try to continue to be a vibrant trial lawyer.
Now tell me, does your blindness, does it make what you do and how you work significantly different than before? Are you a different kind of lawyer given your disability?
Well, I proceed differently. I have an assistant, a gentleman by the name of Dick Dugan, who works with me full time. And I still do the same things. But for example, I can't pick up a document and read it. He'll
Sure.
read to me, and I dictate to him, and he makes notes. Now, when I go to trial in a case, I got to stand up in front of that jury and that judge and do that myself.
Sure.
Well, Dick and I will make we'll go over the depositions and everything that have been taken, and I'll say, mark this, mark this, mark this. We'll make a note of it, and we rehearse and we practice, and I get real familiar with it, and we make a list of everything that I want to ask when I go in front of that judge and that jury, and he'll be sitting over to the side. And then when I get up to put a witness on the stand, or I get up especially to cross-examine a witness, like if I got a doctor on the other side that I'm going to cross-examine, then I'll ask all of the questions I think I can remember, and then I'll go over to Dick and I'll say, "Now tell me what I've left out." And he'll say, "Well, you didn't ask about this and this and this and this." Now I'll go back and I'll ask. And of course, I don't ever talk to the jury about my blindness. We're not there for me to get a favor. We're there to win a legitimate case on behalf of a person who was legitimately injured.
What would be the message to anyone who's facing the challenge of disability, especially somebody who has spent his whole life as a robust and able and accomplished person who's facing life now that looks completely different because of a disability that he's encountered?
Well, I would say, of course, the first thing you do is you pray a lot about it, and you talk to the Lord about it. And I'm a firm believer that the Lord will help you. And the Lord has helped me and has guided me. If you want to help people, if you want to help people, it's a wonderful profession. And but I certainly would say this, and I don't care whether you're a lawyer or you're an engineer or what you do, take the Lord with you.
Thank you. An opportunity to know a little something about Ed and Ed's approach to his life as in the legal profession, and his opportunity to witness to us in the context of his blindness and his work as an advocate and a lawyer, especially for those in most need of one who can advocate for them. Before we invite Ed up, I'd like to invite Kevin Treese, a chance to from the Oklahoma Library for the Blind. Just have a introduction here. Thank you, Kevin.
Before I speak to this wonderful, blessed event, and by the way, thank you very much, I would like to share my yesterday with you. My outreach coordinator and I, we set out for the great north, Oklahoma. We went to Alva, Oklahoma. And while we didn't have any road to Damascus experience, I had to go there. Is that just really wrong to use blessing as material? No. One of the places we went to was the Senior Nutrition Center. And it was about 12:30. We walked in, they were eating lunch, and they just handed Brian a microphone, and he went on about his business to tell them about the services of the Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped. And they fed us as well. And we walked out of there, and I says to Brian, we got to do dinner and a show. What a deal. And here I am again tonight. That was an intentional endeavor. We set out. We meant to do that. And my segue is that tonight's event is a byproduct of Bill coming to us. Unintentional as far as DRS and the library is concerned. I believe, and I'll bet most of you do as well, that good things do happen for noble causes such as services for the visually and physically impaired citizens. As this is a Catholic venue, I'm in good company to proclaim God has his hands in this noble work. So what is our noble work at the Oklahoma Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped? We are a public library service, much like a medium to large public library here in Oklahoma City, although we serve folks that we refer to as print disabled. Our title suggests that one has to be blind to receive our services. That is not true. Just have a visual impairment to where even with corrected vision, you have difficulty reading the newspaper. Under our roof, on approximately 18th and Lincoln, we have 27,000 titles and 163,000 copies. I'd like to also point out that we're not an island unto our own. We're part of the National Library Service for the Blind and Physically Handicapped, which is an extension of the Library of Congress. And for those of our patrons that are computer savvy and have access to the internet, there's a downloading site, and the availability of topics just almost triples with that. Now to the heart of the matter, our AIM Center, and that stands for Accessible Instructional Materials. And we basically provide learning tools for children birth through 12. Now, most of our materials are kindergarten through 12, but we have some developmental tools for the young toddlers as well. As of end of year data, we serve 974 children in 426 different public schools across Oklahoma. This is a joint effort with the Department of Education and Special Education Services. We are a program that operates under funding from what is called federal quota, and it's currently $279 per kid per year. Now, you probably don't have to think too long and realize that that's not going to go real far, right? Well, my AIM Center director and her staff, they do a wonderful job of getting everything we have in our repository out and circulating to the kids that need it. Where I'd like to go with this is we have other folks in our network that help us out. And one of them is our Library Friends Group, Oklahomans for Special Library Services, OSLS. They are their own separate 501c3 organization that's able to get funds in ways that we can't get funds through state appropriations. But they're a wonderful resource, and they help us make things happen. And one of the things that's happened as I've been director for almost 5 years now is how many of you knew that iPads are accessibility devices? They have built-in accessibility. I'd like to show you something. This is a large print social studies 5th grade textbook, volume 1 of 5. Now just imagine little Johnny and Janie loading down their backpack, and this is just one subject, right? Well, tools like iPads that have built-in accessibility features, you can choose the color and the background and the font and all that, and a lot of times it ends up being something special that they're able to find through working with their special education teachers to find what it is that works for them. And a funny thing has happened. While folks like our friends group got us some funds to get some of these things out to the children. Here in the last year or so, the schools have been starting to provide iPads to all the students, because as well as accessibility needs, think about the cost effectiveness of not having all these textbooks, instead being able to download them onto iPads and other devices for children. So things are looking up in that regard. In your program, there's a calling here for volunteerism. One of the other programs we have at the Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped is a telephone reader service. That is a volunteer-driven effort whereby folks are able to call into a computer phone system, get in the right codes, and enter an article. And then that article becomes available to our patrons who wish to use that service and dial in and use it. They're able to get things through here that they wouldn't get via other media means. This is going to sound a little weird, but one of the high volume categories is the obituaries. Well, think about that. A lot of the eye diseases come along with age, and people get to a point where that's fine print, and some people just can't do it. Well, they want to be able to keep up with things just like everybody else, right? Same with the grocery ads, the CVS and the Walmart ads. We do our best to get those things on that service as well. So if you're interested in volunteering, that's the best way to get started. Now, if we find out you're really, really talented and can be a narrator in our digital recording studio, well, then we can talk about that as that happens out. I'd like to call your attention to one thing here on the last page of your program. Interacting with others who have physical differences with us enriches our own lives and gives us greater understanding of life. Now, how true is that? I mean, I knew nothing about DRS or the Library for the Blind or any of that stuff before I became employed in 2004. And here I am, what is it now, 2018, and I'm a director of the library. Tell me God doesn't have his hands in that, right? But really, the more you get involved, the more you know, the more you're blessed. As one blesses others, the blessing is returned. And we've all heard sermons about being salt and light. And just like the library, would love for you to help us get salty and shed some light for some folks. Thank you so much. Please come up and see the wares, and I'll be happy to talk with anybody about anybody that might want to apply for services.
The saying, of course, is that our eyes are the windows to the soul, and that may be true. It seems that by our eyesight we have access to the world, and it is the transition point from the world out here to the world in here. It may be true. But you know, it's service and sacrifice that's the doorway to the soul. And that's what we honor as we honor Ed Abel. His willingness and his ability and his witness to all of us in the midst of being visually impaired to live a life of sacrifice and service is an inspiration to all of us. It is its own gateway to our souls. It's a doorway into a world that permits what we see, and what we experience, and what we encounter to encounter us in a more deep and more full way. And that's why we're so honored that Ed is with us this evening, and why we have invited him to be with us to honor his witness and his experience and his work with all of those who have been able to come to him and make use of his abilities and his goodness and his willingness to work and advocate for them. And so I'd like to invite Ed to to come and share with us some of his thoughts.
Okay, all right. Can you all hear me all right? Yes. Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for being here, and I just want to share a few things with you, and I'm not going to talk for a long time. You know, I've thought a lot about what I wanted to tell you, and you know, what I want to tell you about is my relationship with the Lord and how He has gotten me through this this blindness that I have. As you were told, Father Wolf mentioned that I had prayed a lot about the blindness, and I did, and I can remember thinking, what in the heck am I going to do? You know, here I had gone through law school. I had studied to be a lawyer. I was going to be this really good lawyer, and I was going to try cases. And there are all kinds of lawyers. Some lawyers go to court, and some lawyers don't go to court. You may have heard us advertise on the radio or television, the Abel law firm. You know, I founded that law firm about 52 years ago, and we were going to do trial work and represent people who had been involved in all kinds of accidents and injuries. And I was going to try cases. I was going to court. That's where I got the background in doing arguing and debating in high school and in college. And I thought, well, that's what I was going to do. And here all of a sudden I am, early in my career, and the doctor says, you'll be blind in a year. And I said, how in the world am I going to get along? What am I going to do? And, you know, I'm not a member of the Catholic Church, and I don't care whether you're a member of the Catholic Church or you're a member of the Baptist Church like I was. My parents brought me up in the Baptist Church. We all serve the same God. And I could remember getting down on my knees, and I said, God, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And I never will forget, it was not that I could hear a voice, but my mind went to the Bible where the Apostle Paul said that the Lord told him, my grace is sufficient for you. And I said, I've got to rely on that. That's got to get me through. And I want to give God the credit for whatever I have achieved. And I'm not perfect. I won't be perfect. I never have been perfect. But for whatever I have been able to achieve, I want to give God the credit. And I would say to you and to anybody, if you got a problem, you need to turn it over to the Lord, because it's real, and He'll give you help. You got to rely on Him. Now, the thing that I have learned is that I've got to be constant about that, and not just every once in a while, but I've got to be constant about that, and I make Him a part of my cases that I handle. I make Him a part of my daily life. Now, it is not easy. It's not easy. And it's not easy on my wife. You know, there's lots of things that I can't do that she has to do for me. And it's a burden. And we don't always agree on things. And we have to work that out. And we have to talk to the good Lord about our relationship and how we're going to work that out. And I thank God for Carol. I'll tell you, I was, when I still had my eyesight, I opened my own law firm, and I had a young man working for me, and I wasn't married at the time. And he said, "How would you like a date with a good-looking blonde?" And I said, "How in the heck do I turn that down?" And she was working, she was in school, and she was working, testing people's hearing, and she became a professional person, fitting people with hearing aids and helping them learn to hear and that kind of thing. And she was out at the OU Medical Center. And I called several times, chasing her around that place and on the phone. And finally, I got her on the phone, and I said, introduced myself, and I said, I know a good friend of yours, and he told me that you're somebody I'd like to meet. And I said, I'd like to take you to dinner sometime, and introduce myself, and she did. And, many years later now, this year we will have been married 40 years. And I have to give credit for Carol, because I'm not the easiest person in the world to live with. Being blind is difficult. It's not easy. I get real frustrated sometimes when I can't see something, or when I can't do something, or when I try to do something and it fails, and it frustrates me. And sometimes I'm not the easiest person to live with, but she's my partner, and she has been a tremendous help to me. And I want to, Carol, I want to thank you for your help. I want to thank you for loving me. I love you. And she and I are going to celebrate many years yet to come. And we have two wonderful children. Our children are here tonight. Luke Abel, who is an attorney with me, and Daisha Abel, who is an attorney with me. And Luke's wife is here, and they have three wonderful children that Carol and I love to take care of and play with. And the children and I only have one problem, and that is we have the same enemy, their parents. We want to do something, and the kids want to do something, and Mom and Dad say, "No, not now, not now, not now, no." No, I'm joking, of course, and what I'm trying to really tell you in so many words is, because the Lord has been very helpful to me, my life, even though I am blind, is very wonderful. It's very wonderful. And I can't emphasize enough that you need to be involved with the Lord and let the Lord be a part of your life. Now, I was asked to come down here and talk to you all and talk to you about being blind. And I'll be happy to talk to any of you after we're through here, and if you want to talk privately or something, I'll be happy to talk to you. But I have a special need to be involved with children. I hear all of these things on television and radio about these children, and I want to help them all. I have a real need to be involved with children, to help children. And my understanding is, and I was asked to come talk to you all because of the program that's to help blind children. Now, I was fortunate enough that I didn't lose my eyesight until I was grown. I don't know what it would be like to be blind all of your life, to never be able to see, but it wouldn't be easy. And there is such a temptation when you're blind to just say, I'm through, I can't do it anymore. And in fact, and I hate to admit this, But at one time, and of course I got counseling when I was going blind, and I thought about suicide one time. And I thought, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. But what am I going to do if I go sit down and I can't do anything? I'm going to be sitting in the corner by myself. Pretty soon, everybody else has something else to do. And they're going to be up, and I'm going to be sitting over there by myself. Let me tell you another, and this is kind of funny. You know, I've appeared in front of a lot of judges over my career of 52 years of practicing law. And I don't know why this happens, but a lot of times I'll be somewhere and I'll be in a group of lawyers or that kind of thing, and somebody will come over and say, "Hi, Ed, it's Bill." And I've got to recognize that's Judge so-and-so. And I don't say, "Well, hi, Bill, how are you?" I got to know to say, "Well, hi, Judge, how are you?" And I can't see them, you know, and or just if I can't figure out for sure that it's a judge or something, I'll say, "Well, hi, sir, how are you?" You know, that kind of thing. But most of the time, I know the judge's voice. You got to learn their voices. You got to know them, and of course, they'll test you. They'll test you and see how you do. And I have been very fortunate when I've been in court, when the judges will let me move around, and I'll go talk to Dick, or maybe Luke and I'll be trying a case together. And when I get through cross-examining a witness or somebody, I'll walk over to one of them and I'll say, "No, what have I forgotten? What have I not asked?" And they'll prompt me, and then I'll go on, and you know, and I've learned a way to deal with that blindness. Well, we've got these kids who are blind, I understand, and we've got to teach them that you can get along, you can have a good life, you can make a good life, and you can still be blind. And how are you going to deal with it? How are you going to deal with it? Now, you know, I was reading the Bible here recently. We have a Bible study in our office. We try to read the Bible every day, and or if not every day, we do it as often as we can. And there was a part of the scripture over in James where James said, "Faith without work." Let's see, how does it go? Faith without work is lost, or faith without work is, I can't quote it exactly, but it's gone. Well, what does that mean to us with this program for these children? If we think this is a good program to teach children who are blind how they're going to be able to get by, then what are we going to do about it? If we don't do something, they won't be able to achieve that. Now, my understanding is that what they need, if nothing else, is they need financial support. So what I want to ask you folks to do tonight is I want to ask you to make a commitment to dig down into your pocketbook. And I'm not going to tell you how much to give, but I want to ask you to write a check. And I want to ask you to donate to this church for these programs to try to educate these blind children so that they can live a full, normal life. I am lucky. I've had the right people, my parents, my wife, my kids, who have helped me all along. These youngsters that come along now, they need help. And if you and I don't do something about it, and I will contribute, so I'm not going to ask you to do something that I won't do, but if you don't contribute to these children, then they're going to have a rough time. We can help these children, and it's up to you, and it's up to me, and it's up to your friends and my friends for us to talk to those people and say, look, this is a valid program. It's going to help kids. It's going to help them grow up. It's going to help them be It's going to help them be really important people. They can live a full life even if they are blind. Being blind is not easy, and it's not going to be easy. One of these days, I understand from what they're saying on the radio, I'll be driving down a car. I'll just be telling it where to take me, and it'll take me somewhere. I don't know what I'm going to do when I get there, when I get out of the car. I don't know how I'm going to get to the right building or that kind of thing. No, seriously, we can help these kids, and that's what I want to ask you to do. Now, if any of you, and we won't take time to do this right now, but if any of you have any questions about this at all, come over and talk to me before I leave this evening. I'd be happy to talk to you. Thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate you listening to me.
We have over at Ed's table a small crystal cross that we've given him as a memento of this evening. It's not for him to see, of course, but it is, of course, for everyone else to see. And so we're glad to have the opportunity to extend that to him. You know, in the story of St. Paul's conversion, he stands up on the road to Damascus, and he opens his eyes, and he sees that he's blind. He cannot see. He, of course, didn't have the opportunity to know until that moment that he had been blind his whole life. He didn't know it until then. He goes into Damascus, and Ananias comes to see him, and with Ananias' presence and the Lord's grace, Paul can see. I think it's the invitation to know that we can walk around all day long and see what's there and be blind. Sometimes it takes the opportunity to meet someone who's unable to see to understand that seeing and knowing and understanding doesn't necessarily isn't necessarily a product of having open eyes. So, Ed, thank you very much. Thank you for your witness, and thank you for your words. We appreciate it. Bill?
Well, my name is William Cathey, and I have some final thoughts I'd like to share with everybody about this event. As Father Wolf said, that Living Catholic Productions, which we're all here tonight, we're so proud that we have established an Advent season. And for those of you not Catholic, that's the season leading up to Christmas, about 4 weeks. So every year around Thanksgiving or a little after Thanksgiving, until about this time, we're going to celebrate Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol and the Santa Lucia Dinner in support of blind people here in Oklahoma. It's something that is very dear to me, and I'll just tell you, you saw the gold standard today with Ed Abel. Ed Abel represents people that, I'll just put bluntly, have been kicked to the curb. They've been seriously injured through no fault of their own, but no one will take responsibility. The powerful, the people that have all the money, and this person might be a minimum wage worker or somebody that, everywhere in the world, that person's out of luck. But thank God we live in America where you can go to court and you can fight for what you need, your rights, and what you need to express. I can tell you, an injured worker that doesn't have a dime and goes into court with his blind lawyer, Ed Abel, with 10 other $1 million defense lawyers that wouldn't want to wipe their feet on that plaintiff. It's not even a fair fight. I feel sorry for those millionaire lawyers because they're going to get kicked to the curb. That's what Ed Abel is. He's probably the finest lawyer in Oklahoma. He's probably the top 10 or 20 in the United States. We've all seen Jerry Spence. He wore the buckskin coats and things like that. But we are in rarefied air in the presence of Ed Abel. Ed's lived his life the way Christians should and do. Somebody asked me, how did you come up with this idea to have a radio show, Living Catholic? The actual name of it, Father Wolf's rather modest. The actual name of the show is Living Catholic with Father Don Wolf. And I've had the pleasure of having Father Wolf be my spiritual guide for almost 30 years. So have a lot of churches here in Oklahoma City, from Holy Angels to where he's at now, at the largest Catholic church in Oklahoma, St. Eugene's. He meets and witnesses Christ's love to hundreds of people every week. But I said, we need to have a radio show that can be aired all across the state, that thousands of people can hear Father Wolf. And those that you know Father Wolf, he's exactly like he was tonight in a private conversation. And it's a wonderful thing. And it's been 6 years, and we're just getting started. I want to talk a little about my theology in this, and it's not a long speech. I'm not a theologian. I was an old knight of Columbus that we like to flip hamburgers and serve others. But how I would define living Catholic, and if you're not Catholic, living Christian. It was defined to me by a 6-year-old boy that we took from church to give little fruit baskets over Halloween 35 years ago to an 87-year-old woman. And that little boy was dressed up like a devil in their Halloween costume. And he walked up to that 87-year-old woman there at the nursing home. He handed it to her and he said, "Serve others in Jesus' name." That's Christianity. That's it. Serve others in Jesus' name. I did a lot of traveling years ago, and I would be listening to the radio. Sometimes the rock music got a little tiring, so I'd listen to some radio preachers. Now, if you're Catholic, that's kind of a weird experience. That's not usually the message you hear. But I heard one that said, people ask, how do you know when someone says they're a Christian, if they're a Christian? And this preacher said, I've been a preacher 40 years, and you can't x-ray into someone's mind and know. But he said there's one trait that every Christian should have, and that's gratitude. Gratitude for their life, gratitude for their family. And you know, if you'll just indulge me a minute, that's what I'm going to talk about just for a minute, my gratitude. I have gratitude for Ed Abel. He's been a beacon in this community for others. I just had the wild idea of driving on a Friday afternoon at 4:30 that wouldn't it be great to have Ed Abel speak at the first Santa Lucia dinner. And so I thought, this beautiful White House on 63rd, his office. But I thought, who in the heck would like some guy in blue jeans coming in at 4:45 on a Friday afternoon? I didn't go in to speak to Ed Abel. I just went in and talked to his secretary, receptionist, and said, I'd just like to leave my name and number. And this is what we're doing. And we did the Christmas Carol for the blind. And she says, well, why don't you tell him yourself? And I looked kind of back, called down, and she said, yeah, Ed's going to send Dick Dugan down to, brought me right up the White House stairs, and we talked for 45 minutes. He said he'd be happy to do it. And I said, I'm either on another planet or God's dealing in here. I've studied history, Oklahoma history, my whole life. We're in the presence of someone like Will Rogers, Wally Post, David Boren, George Nye, Dewey Bartlett, great Oklahomans. Ed Abel is a great Oklahoman that everyone in this room will remember that they got to hear Ed Abel live, and what a blessing that was. I just wanted to say I'm grateful for Ed Abel. But I'm grateful for, and I told you I'm grateful for Father Wolf, but I'm grateful for so many people in this room that I've known and got to meet. I'll tell you, I told a little of my story about I've had cataract surgery. But thinking here, we don't know when we might face blindness or anything else. Isn't it wonderful to know that there's so many committed people like Kevin Treese and the people that work at the Oklahoma Library for the Blind, people that love us and are there to work for us, and we don't even know who their names, and we don't know anything about them, but they're there. I'm grateful for the Oklahoma Library for the Blind and all the people that work at the Department of Rehabilitative Services. They ain't doing it for the money. They're doing it because what we all do in our lives, serve others in Jesus' name. And there's all kinds of ways to do it. I look out here and see other people. We have many of the workers at the St. Thomas More bookstore that give their lives to help people. I've been in that bookstore so many times in the last 30 years. They can tell you anything about anything you need. We've given medals to the Abels. St. Thomas More bookstore is serving Jesus by helping you. And if you have any Catholic friend you want to give a graduation gift, they're there because they love the Lord. They had a fire there last year, almost terrible, and they're all back just loving what they do. What a blessing. I'm grateful for St. Thomas More Bookstore. I'm grateful for the students at Rose State University. College. It may be university someday, but so giving of themselves to be in A Christmas Carol. Drove to Edmond to be in the play at their cost, just to help. That's what they could give. Why did they do it? Because they're serving Jesus by serving others in their own way. Jesus lived on this world, on this earth for 33 years. And you know what? You could call those 33 years a labor of love. That's what our lives should be, a labor of love every single day. Ed Abel has a labor of love to help these people, has a labor of love to do good in the world. The people at St. Thomas More have a labor of love to help people understand and help them with what they do. The people at the Oklahoma Library for the Blind are giving their lives to help these people. Well, that's my theology. I'm so grateful for everyone to be here. And I'm especially grateful to 2 freshman senators that just got elected. Every time I turn on the TV, I want to throw up nationally everywhere that everyone hates everybody and everybody can't get along. These 2 senators, Senator Paul Racino and Senator Paul Scott, who are sitting over there, they came to our publication day celebration of Charles Dickens. They're back there. They're going to be the tip of the spear to make sure that there is the proper funding. But it's not up to the government to serve the blind. It's up for us. That's one aspect of it, and they're going to be there fighting for us, or fighting for the blind. This is a nice dinner. We had a nice play, and I thought of that, and I said, but Living Catholic Productions, we're going on to another area. We have another production to put on. But the people at the Library for the Blind, they're there every single day, 365 days, every year. Giving books for K-12 blind kids. That's the minimum. We have a high school in Muskogee for the blind. They have their own marching band. Why don't we invite them to a football game to come play? They do those. Jesus Christ came into this world and he said, I came to bring you life abundantly. That's not just for the wealthy. That's not just for the healthy. That's for everybody. So, if we get all the books these kids need to get through school, that ain't enough. It's never enough. But it's always just enough. Because with the Lord, we're always good enough. So, I'm kind of reverting back to a little grand night preaching. I am so proud that each one of you are here. Yeah, it would have been nice to have a little, 20 or 30 more, but the 50 or 55 that came, I told my counsel one time, Jesus changed the world with 12. Vladimir Lenin took 6 people and changed a revolution. There are people in this room, and I know some of them, and I don't know some of them. Because they were here tonight, they're going to make a difference. And I'm not talking about just a gauzy make a difference in the world like we should every day. I'm talking about making a difference with blind children in Oklahoma. We're here for a specific reason. We're going to have a website up on livingcatholicproductions.com on February 1st. What a date to have it on, that you go there anytime you want. We're going to have a link to the Oklahoma Library for the Blind. We're going to let you know at the Capitol there's going to be messaging about what's going on and helping blind people. The dirty little secret is if you had a vote for blind kids in the House and the Senate, it would be 183-0 for the blind kids. But we're going to hold them, and we've got these new senators that are going to help hold that promise that every child deserves an abundant life, that the best we can do. I think everybody agrees with that. So we're doing that on February 1st. That's our declaration. Guess what? That happens to be Ed Abel's birthday. What a great day. A warrior's day. I'm here excited and happy. This is a call to action. Jesus didn't call us to climb jungle gyms. He called us to climb mountains. And we're going to do it with a joyful heart. It's not someone's fault that these kids don't have what they have. We don't need to worry about whose fault it is and assess blame. We need to look in the mirror and say, from this day forward, they're going to have their books. And we're going to have that band get to go to an OU football game. And we're going to do other things. And we're going to do it and do it and do it. It doesn't have to consume your life. I ask people to donate 2 hours out of their entire life in 1 year. When I think of my wasted time in my life arguing about who the best football team in 1971 was, well, I didn't think it was wasted time at the time, but it's not wasted time. This isn't some things you have passion about are wonderful. And you don't have to have marches in the street. You don't have to do, you just wear the love of Christ in your heart and you know what you should do. You know, I'm looking over at one of my best friends for almost 50 years, Mark Engel and his son. We're both men of McGinnis here. We're in the same 1976 class. These are the lessons we were taught here. We can remember Father Patuski. He never took no for an answer. Like, yeah, we need all this, we need that, go do that. We thought we were put upon, but it's amazing what he could accomplish. And I'm telling you, the young people from Rose and the high schools that did all this, you can change the world. You know, there's that little quote I had in here I found about Charles Dickens. Let's quit saying, I wish these kids had their books. Let's say they will have those books, and they'll have a lot more. It doesn't take everything from us to do that, but just a little bit. I didn't ask you to give a week of your time. And I'm embarrassed when I say 2 hours. I mean, and I certainly don't do enough. But everybody can do a little bit. Everybody can be part of the solution. And that's an empowering thing. That we don't turn it over to the government or somebody else or somebody in Nichols Hills that could write $1 million check. You know, again, I'm not a theologian, but I know what Jesus said in Matthew. What you did for the least of these, you did unto me. And we're all going to be in that judgment day sometime. And it makes me feel bad sometimes thinking, well, how many hours did I really give the blind? You know, I said I read for them when I was in junior high. That was nice. I haven't done any heavy lifting. But it doesn't really take, this idea that it takes your and consumes your whole life is not what it's about. It's having that joy. I'm starting to preach. I'm starting to drift over into the Baptist area, but I just wanted to share that with you. And what I think it is a call to action, and I hope everybody will watch our website. It'll be interactive. You can write us emails. You can post things. And I'm going to challenge you, because be back here next year. There'll be more people here. And we'll have Kevin come up and say, what happened to the AIM program? What happened? And you know what he's going to, I have no doubt he's going to say, you won't believe what happened. People just kind of came out of the woodwork. Well, that's all I am, is a little guy in the woodwork. But a lot of little guys and gals in the woodwork can change the world. God bless you for coming here tonight. As Tiny Tim would say, God bless us all, everyone.